Today, we'll debate, should we defund the police, with Reed, an anarcho-capitalist, and Clara, a progressive reformist. They're two artificial intelligence personas. Please introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Reed, an ardent supporter of anarcho-capitalism. My core belief is that free markets and voluntary exchanges are the cornerstones of a prosperous and harmonious society. I argue for the complete abolition of state-run institutions like the police, which I see as inherently coercive and inefficient. Instead, I envision a world where private security firms, motivated by competition and accountability, provide protection services. This would encourage innovation and allow communities to self-organize and choose the security measures that best fit their needs. I believe that when individuals are free from centralized authority, they can cooperate and thrive through voluntary cooperation and mutual aid. Let's pave the way for a society rooted in freedom, responsibility, and mutual respect.
Hi, I'm Clara, and I'm passionate about progressive reform to achieve social justice and equity within our existing systems. I acknowledge that our current policing system has significant flaws, but I believe that completely defunding the police could lead to greater insecurity, especially in marginalized communities that already struggle with crime. My focus is on comprehensive police reform, which includes enhanced training into escalation, bias education, and community policing strategies. I also advocate for reallocating a portion of police funding to social services, mental health care, and education to address the root causes of crime and create healthier communities. I believe in the power of collective action and policy reforms to transform our policing system into one that truly serves and protects all citizens fairly and humanely. Together, we can build a more just and equitable society.
Thank you, guys. Reed and Clara will now present their 3 rounds of arguments.
Certainly, Clara, I appreciate your desire for a more equitable society, and I think we share a common goal there. However, I believe that true safety and community well-being are best achieved outside of state-run systems. For instance, consider the historical example of the private, non-state-run peacekeepers in the Wild West. Many people think of it as lawless, but in reality, settlements often hired private security or formed voluntary militias to keep the peace effectively without centralized authority. Additionally, today we already see elements of this in action, like neighborhood watch programs and community-led safety initiatives that operate independently of traditional policing. These often result in more community trust and accountability since the people involved have a direct stake in their neighborhood safety. By shifting towards a market-driven approach, we empower communities to choose and innovate on the safety solutions that work best for them, rather than being stuck with one-size-fits-all state solutions.
Reed, I understand your perspective on the benefits of decentralization and free markets, but history has shown that fully relying on such systems for public safety can lead to significant issues. Look at examples like early industrial cities before modern policing, where private security often served the interests of the wealthy, leaving marginalized communities vulnerable. In the modern context, we see issues with private security in places where there is no regulation. It often leads to inconsistent and unequal protection based on wealth, similar to what we've seen with private healthcare or education in some regions. This could exacerbate existing inequalities and leave those without financial means to fend for themselves. Moreover, private security firms might prioritize profit over public welfare, potentially leading to abuses without accountability. A reformed state-run system can ensure a baseline of equitable service, complemented by community involvement, creating a balance between formal and informal safety measures for all members of society.
Clara, I hear your concerns about the potential for inequality and lack of accountability with private security. However, I argue that competition in the market naturally drives these firms to provide better services. In a free market, customers, individuals and communities can hold firms accountable by simply choosing different providers if they are dissatisfied. This choice creates incentives for firms to serve not just the wealthy, but all community members, as excluding a significant portion of the population would be bad for business. Moreover, in a society with robust community communication and networks, word of mouth and reputation greatly influence which firms thrive. Look at platforms like Yelp or community-led forums online, where consumers hold businesses accountable by sharing experiences. Similarly, community-driven reviews and watchdog organizations could ensure that private security services are equitable and effective. Ultimately, a decentralized approach allows for a diverse range of safety solutions tailored to individual community needs, fostering innovation and responsiveness in a way that a monolithic state-run system struggles to achieve. By empowering communities to choose and adapt, we can ensure more equitable and personalized protection for all.
Reed, while I understand the appeal of competition, we must recognize the differences between market-driven services and fundamental public safety. Unlike consumer products, safety and security need consistent and equitable access for everyone, not just those who can afford better services or have the loudest voices online. History has shown that markets don't always naturally correct inequalities, and we risk deepening them by shifting entirely to privatized safety measures. Furthermore, the accountability you mention assumes a perfectly informed and empowered consumer base, which doesn't always exist, especially in marginalized communities that might lack the resources or platforms to switch providers or voice grievances. We've seen this in sectors like healthcare, where market-driven approaches can lead to disparities in service quality and access. Instead, we should focus on reforming the existing system to make it more responsive, transparent, and community-driven. This includes creating stronger oversight mechanisms and more community involvement in how policing resources are allocated and used. In this way, we ensure a baseline of protection that serves everyone equitably while still allowing for community-led initiatives to complement this framework.
Clara, I see where you're coming from, but expecting the government to fix what it historically fumbles is like asking a fish to ride a bicycle, both challenging and, frankly, a bit impractical. The idea that a centralized system can guarantee equitable access assumes a level of efficiency and fairness that governments have yet to consistently demonstrate. Remember, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, is often met with more skepticism than excitement. Let's take a page from Lasik surgery, watch out, well, more jokes ahead, which isn't typically covered by insurance. Private providers have driven down costs through competition, making it accessible to more people. Why should safety be any different? With the right incentives and community collaboration, the market can indeed provide innovative and diverse solutions that cater to everyone, not just those with the deepest pockets. In summary, government-led reform risks being a band-aid on a bullet wound, while a free market offers flexibility and responsiveness. Plus, wouldn't you rather choose your solution, as if you were picking a pizza topping, except it's safety, so a bit more serious, but way more impactful?
Reed, I appreciate your enthusiasm for the free market. It's like the Swiss Army knife of solutions in your world. But while your optimism is endearing, we can't gamble on safety with a choose-your-own-adventure approach where only the last chapter reveals who gets real protection. Isn't it a bit like trying to herd cats by simply opening a can of tuna and hoping for the best? You're bound to miss a few. Thinking that private security would follow the Lasik model assumes people can shop around for safety, a luxury not available in life or death moments. It's like comparing apples to, well, guard dogs. And let's not forget how those with the least resources often get the short end of the stick, unless, of course, you're actually the dog and the stick's a bone. In short, reforming the current system allows for oversight and fairness across the board, ensuring everyone gets the protection they deserve. Let's aim for collective security, not just secure collectives. That way, we all get a safety net, without looking like trapeze artists doomed to miss.
Thank you for your speeches. Someone from the audience will now make a question to Reed and Clara.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm fascinated by this lively discussion on security and market dynamics. My question is for Reed. While you've discussed the benefits of competition in safety services, I'm curious about your thoughts on how private security could effectively handle large-scale emergencies or crises that require coordinated responses, historically a function of centralized entities. How do you see decentralized, market-driven systems addressing these kinds of situations efficiently and equitably?
Great question, Alex. Large-scale emergencies indeed pose unique challenges, but I believe decentralized systems can rise to the occasion with the right frameworks. Imagine a network of private security firms forming coalitions or alliances, akin to mutual aid agreements, to respond effectively to significant incidents. This kind of collaboration isn't foreign to the private sector. Consider how companies like airlines and tech firms often partner during crises to coordinate resources swiftly and efficiently. Additionally, decentralized systems could utilize technology, say, advanced communication platforms or AI-powered logistics, to facilitate rapid coordination among disparate security providers. Think of it as a flash mob, but instead of dancing, they're saving the day. It's often surprising how quickly private entities can innovate when incentivized by reputation and profit. In short, while challenges exist, I see immense potential for private systems to develop robust, coordinated responses that might even leapfrog some of the bureaucracy traditionally associated with centralized efforts. As long as we're creative and cooperative, I'm confident we can manage large-scale crises just as effectively, if not more so.
Hi again, Clara. I've been really interested in hearing your thoughts on police reform within existing systems. My question is, how do you address concerns about the current bureaucracy and inefficiencies that can hamper reform efforts? Is there a way to ensure that these reforms are implemented swiftly and effectively, avoiding the pitfalls of endless red tape while achieving tangible, timely improvements in community safety and equity?
Thanks, Alex, for raising a crucial point. Bureaucracy can undoubtedly slow down reform efforts, but there are strategies to tackle this effectively. One approach is to build momentum for reform by fostering strong partnerships between government entities, community organizations, and advocacy groups. These collaborations ensure that the voices of those most affected by policing are not only heard but directly influence the reform process, helping to cut through red tape with a shared sense of urgency and clear objectives. Moreover, leveraging technology for transparency can also accelerate reform. Implementing tools that track reform progress and outcomes in real time can keep the process accountable and help identify and adjust ineffective strategies quickly. This approach has been successful in other reform areas, like education and healthcare. Lastly, fostering pilot programs at the local level allows us to test and refine solutions before scaling them up. This method ensures we're learning quickly from real-world application, minimizing bureaucratic delays. In sum, while bureaucracy is a challenge, it can be navigated with strategic planning, collaboration, and a commitment to transparency and accountability.
The debaters now have a minute to talk about something they regret not bringing up to the discussion.
Well, Alex, let me let you in on a little regret of mine during this debate. I completely forgot to mention the secret utopia where cats run their own self-governing safety firms. I hear they're really persuasive negotiators and unbeatable at community watch. Who needs lasers when you've got cat eyes, right? Now, speaking of the fishy argument Clara brought up, about bureaucracy becoming efficient through partnerships and tech, I imagine the tech-savvy snail racing through the red tape. Now that's a sight. It feels a bit like putting racing stripes on a turtle and expecting Usain Bolt speeds. But hey, it's always fun to dream of streamlined reforms without those all-too-common slowdowns. In all seriousness, though, debating these topics really highlights how important diverse perspectives are in tackling society's challenges. Even if we can't convince each other completely, at least we can agree that thinking outside the box, or cat, or snail shell, is never a bad place to start.
Well, Reed and Alex, there's a little something I missed mentioning. My grand vision where we train squirrels to manage public resources. After all, if they can remember where they've hidden all those acorns, surely they could handle a budget. I guess that might sound nuts, but it's a missed opportunity for sure. Speaking of missed, Reed brought up a doozy of an argument with his Lasik surgery analogy. Now, I suppose if we're laser focused on privatizing everything, we might overlook the need for glasses. Maybe he's betting on optometrists becoming our future emergency responders. But in reality, comparing elective eye procedures to public safety feels like comparing apples to hubcaps. All jokes aside, I think it's important to remember that while we might see paths differently, combining our different perspectives might just be the key to creatively solving these big challenges, so long as we keep some humor and humility along the way.
Thank you, folks. Let's go over to our judges.
Reed scores 1. Argumentation, 8 out of 10. Reed presented a strong case for anarcho-capitalism and privatized security solutions, effectively using historical examples like Wild West and modern comparisons like Lasik surgery. However, some of his analogies, such as comparing eye surgery to public safety services, could have been more closely aligned with the core issue of equitable access to essential services. 2. Engagement, 7 out of 10. Reed was deeply engaged with Clara's points, using humor effectively to lighten the mood and make his arguments memorable. His responses were quick and often witty, but at times, the humor risked overshadowing substantive engagements, particularly in complex areas like crisis management. 3. Responsiveness, 9 out of 10. Reed was very responsive to the questions asked by the audience, like the one around handling large-scale emergencies without centralized entities. He quickly adapted his arguments to address new concerns and was proactive about integrating the audience's perspectives into the debate. Clara scores 1. Argumentation, 9 out of 10. Clara laid out a compelling case for reform within existing structures, using historical examples and logical reasoning to argue against privatization. Her emphasis on community involvement and transparency added depth to her arguments, emphasizing practical solutions within the current system. 2. Engagement, 8 out of 10. Clara maintained a respectful yet assertive tone throughout, using humor to counter Reed's points creatively. Her engagement was balanced, and her ability to incorporate humor without losing sight of her arguments added to her persuasiveness. 3. Responsiveness, 8 out of 10. Clara was quick to respond to audience queries, particularly regarding the bureaucratic challenges of reforms. She effectively outlined her strategies for mitigating these concerns, although at times her solutions appeared optimistic without thorough contingency planning, considering potential hurdles in policy implementation.
What are your opinions about the debate? What would you like to see AI's debate next? Keep questioning.